Give it 2 more minutes. There are still a couple people in the waiting room.
Marcella, you're in DC?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
In DC?
Yeah, we have the International Franchise Association is downtown
Where are you guys at? What
on
street?
K Street.
Oh, we have a store on L Street.
Oh, nice.
Right. You know where Joe and the Juice is?
Yep.
Like right next door there.
Oh, awesome.
You need to grab some smoothies. Do a big catering order at least every once in a while. Or I guess we could send stuff over to you guys as a little
Right.
surprise, right? Yeah. Gonna work on that.
Okay, Sherry, if you want to start, I'm still admitting some people, but you can start.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to our first virtual marketing workshop of 2023. I'm so glad to see you all and excited for this month. 25 days from now will be the beginning of the IFA's convention. We can't wait to see you. If you have not registered, I do encourage you to come. I know that we are expecting I'm hoping and anticipating, as I see from the stats so far, probably the biggest convention ever in our history. So please do not miss this amazing event. I want to kind of hand it over. Today, we have 2 really meaty topics and fun to discuss, lots of learnings to take back to your team. I want to introduce Ryan Hicks, who's going to take it from here, and he's going to talk to you about housekeeping items and just review the topics and how we work it. So have fun, guys.
Beautiful. Thank you very much, Sherry. And it is exciting to be back. We're speeding into the new year as IFA convention, like Sherry mentioned, is around the corner. I want to add to what she said and say that if you know anybody, whether it's peers in the industry or maybe it's folks on the team, go ahead and lean in to giving them some FOMO about prospectively not attending. So push them to get registered. I was talking with a couple of folks outside of the folks on this call, and the participation will be really good, and very excited for IFA as always. But for some reason in particular this year, Vegas seems to draw a big crowd, and so it'll be good. It's at Mandalay, so get registered if you haven't been. Couple of housekeeping items, and then we'll introduce today's topics. From the housekeeping items, first off, as I had some notes here and I just got locked out of my notes. So let me pull up the notes, but basically edit your name in the Zoom field to have franchisor, franchisee, or supplier at the end of it. And so to do that, you just click the participants drop down, you find your name, click edit, and add that because it'll help Marcella on the back end be able to put us into our breakout rooms from a facilitation standpoint. So the way that it'll work logistically, 2 rounds of discussions. I'll introduce the first topic. We're going to go into breakout rooms where some friendly faces are going to talk about those topics. We're going to come back in the room, and then the facilitator, the group leader, is going to share those nuggets. So you'll get to hear some of the top takeaways from all of the different groups that are going on. Then we'll do that another round, and we'll come back. And so make sure that you have your name edited properly in the participation drop down. Again, as always, thank you to the facilitators. I'll go ahead and introduce rather than having them all introduce themselves. I'll introduce, and you just wave as I say your name for the facilitators. So we have Sherry Fishman from Fishman PR, who you just heard of, and most everybody here will know Sherry. But we have Sherry Fishman. We have Jamie Isaacs with All Points Public Relations. We have Scott Kirkin with 919 Marketing. we have Mitch Baker with Robex, and Robex are very tasty, by the way, just throw that comment in.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mitch, for facilitating. And then we have Danielle Euthus from Speed Pro. And Danielle, I hope I said your last name right, but these are our worthy facilitators. Thank you guys for volunteering to facilitate and participate. So the two topics for the day, the first one is, which I'll break down now, is storytelling through digital marketing. Our second one is the stages of becoming a franchise brand. So the first round of topics will be storytelling through digital marketing. And I'm going to start off with a few comments top of house, just to kind of probably make the most obvious statement of the year. And that is that storytelling is a powerful tool in the marketing arsenal. And this has been the case since digital. We're focused on digital storytelling in this first breakout session. So as you go into the sessions for the facilitators and for the folks, really kind of picture the digital channels and how you're effectively and also be brainstorming effective ways to storytell digitally. But this has been a powerful tool since before digital even existed. So if I were to make a phrase, the best form of marketing is, and most people would probably automatically think word of mouth. And what drives that is ultimately stories, whether it's a positive story or a negative story. But now in the digital world, again, these are very obvious statements, but it's just that there's channels and the conversation can be accelerated so far. We can be in so many more places than we are physically. And so for obvious reasons, digital is a very powerful place to put focus and energy as it relates to getting your story out. And this is for the consumer side of the business as well as on the development side of the business. You can take it down the development side if you would like. I would challenge the bulk of the first part of the conversations to be around the consumer side, you know, whether you're B2B, but how are you attracting and telling your stories from a customer standpoint? And we can also break down franchise development, but a couple of words of recommendation. Whenever you're thinking about storytelling, be intentional. And by intentional, I mean, you know, about the platforms that you're selecting and the ways in which you're curating and sharing stories or leveraging partners like PR partners, et cetera. And also, so be intentional, but also be contextual, which means is thinking about the platform. Oftentimes I see folks kind of trying to take the same message, and it is effective to share that across all channels, but in contextualizing that and really thinking about the channel natively, whether you're thinking about social channels, et cetera, it's a worthwhile exercise to think contextually about platforms and ultimately take advantage of the strengths of the different channels that are available to you. And so ultimately, I would say kind of in parting words, just to set the frame. Well, what is the goal of digital storytelling? And the bottom line, and if in my opinion, it's really, you want to, you know, obviously it's a very vanilla statement to say you want to espouse your brand values, promote your products and services, et cetera, but it's really about emotional connection is what I think that effective storytelling boils down to. And so having that said, I want to kick it off to the facilitators to break out into the groups, and we will reconvene here after great conversation. Thank you so much, guys.
Right. Everybody should be going into the breakout rooms right now.
This meeting is being recorded.
All right, we will give it another second. Marcella, is everyone back in?
Yeah, I think we have everybody back in.
All right, if I could ask everyone to make sure that you're muted, because I heard a couple of noises. So I hope everyone had productive conversations. I enjoyed the chat, seemed to go by really quick in the group as this is a big topic. So let's go ahead and go around the horn and hear some feedback from each group. And first, I'll call on Jamie to hear your feedback from your session, your breakout.
Yes, thanks for calling on us. We had a great group of professionals represented. What I thought was, really, kind of telling in our storytelling topic was, a unique perspective that Jeremy Leduc brought from his time with Sport Clips, and he's a franchisee with Sport Clips as well as a supplier, but talked about how the values of the organization really come through in every sort of marketing channel that they utilize, especially digitally, right? And there's really three things, and they're plain as day. I think we can all see them in their storytelling, right? It's vets, sports, and community, give back, right? Those are like everything you see, that story is told throughout the organization. Being a great sports fan, aligning with those who have sacrificed for the country, and obviously the community, the way they embed themselves into the community, and that story is weaved in every sort of digital way that they communicate. We talked about how it's used through earned media, owned media, and paid media, and all that done with Sport Clips really came out. On the other hand, we had a really unique perspective with an executive who formerly was with Wendy's, and what a unique way for storytelling to come out, and how he brought to the conversation really having someone to tell the story, and the role that Wendy actually plays in the storytelling role. Whereas there's not really a specific persona with Sport Clips, there is a very specific persona with Wendy's, and how the story is told from Wendy's perspective. We reflected on the, kind of the roasting that Wendy does, and through Twitter. We talked about, she's in video games from a digital standpoint also. So really that brand comes out. And then we had an emerging brand talk about a way that they are trying to tell their story. And I thought, what this gentleman had to say was really spot on, and talked about a podcast that they're doing to tell their story. And I think that's really a great way of utilizing digital media today to own the conversation and convey values and what you stand for. And this is a brand called Bloomin' Blinds that goes into homes and fixes blinds, right? So there's nothing more important than establishing trust when you're going to someone's home. And all of their digital marketing and digital presence is about creating that trusting relationship with consumers. So great discussion. The way their storytelling is weaved into everything that they do. We talked about, Wendy's having, the difference between a franchisee having 1 unit and 300 units, and how storytelling is a little bit different locally for them. And, had a lot of, dynamic conversation around brand identity, and how the format of the brands kind of dictates how the story is told.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jamie. I got a chuckle out of the Wendy's and the Twitter voice. I very much appreciate a lot of the food brands and their wittiness on Twitter. But let's go ahead and call on Scott Kirkin with 919. Can you share top takeaways from your group?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. From our group, we had a family of brands representation in there, which is interesting because obviously you have different messages for each of the brands. And I think the key takeaway here is that the visuals are key in your storytelling. So whether it is still imagery or video content that you're pushing out, you want to make sure that those visuals are truly engaging with the audience that you're pushing out to, and really trying to, and this kind of goes off of what Jamie was saying also, but drawing that emotional connection, right? So with whatever story that you are telling, you want to make sure that you are driving that connection with that specific audience that you're targeting, and making sure that the storytelling that you are telling is educational, and that you're providing some answers to maybe some of the questions that people are looking for, whether it's through the digital space or even on your own website. So really great interaction and feedback from our group today.
Beautiful. Thank you very much for that. Let's go ahead and we'll call on Mitch. I was in Mitch's group, Mitch Baker with Robex.
Hey, thanks, Ryan. So a couple key points that we focused on. We talked about, the importance of being consistent and being regular in how you engage and how you tell those stories. That's key. And of course, then in brands that are in individual markets, it's key that you get locally sourced content. And in a perfect world, maybe to gamify and incentivize customers or just participants for that local feedback. And also, somebody mentioned, what's key is just to really present the data and the results of providing those avenues to tell your story from a digital perspective. That really the data is very, very telling. And in some cases, where you have any kind of hesitancy, in the case of a franchisor-franchisee relationship, some franchisees might be hesitant to either maybe spend a couple of dollars on engaging in a campaign or staying consistent with communicating to their guests. So again, the data will show them, hey, listen, if you do this, this is what's working. These are the types of responses we get. We also talked about sort of what's trending, what's sort of on the horizon for opportunities to engage from a digital perspective. And one of the platforms that seems to be taking hold, is ChatGPT, where it's an opportunity to have a conversation about your brand, or again, more of an engagement tool as well. And I think, there's certainly, as marketers, we're constantly seeing, these new platforms and new opportunities to engage with our customers, existing customers, new customers. So they're continually so important.
All right.
That's
Thank you.
what I got.
Thank you so much, Mitch. Let's go ahead and cruise over to Danielle. Feedback from your group.
Hello. We started out actually with what do we mean by storytelling and what are all the pieces of that? And it seems to me like throughout the customer journey, basically every touch point can be a point for storytelling. It can be blog posts and social media and PR and testimonials, and on the franchise development side, when candidates are moving through. So there's so many different pieces of storytelling. And then if you have different stories to tell to different types of clients and different segments of clients, there can be so much to storytelling that it can almost be overwhelming, because there's so many pieces to so many different clients, and we're doing all these different channels and all these different things. So in terms of tactics, we talked a lot about video and the importance of being able to show that, especially when people's attention spans are so short and they're not going to be as engaged in reading a full block of branded copy or a full blog post as much as they would be into video. And we also talked about reviews and testimonials, as a lot of the other groups did. And what we brought it back to was that Peter Drucker saying, people are buying satisfaction. They're not buying the service, the product, what are they actually, they're buying the end satisfaction. And today, the emotional piece is so much more important than it was previously. People want to know an emotional story, and basically any of the products and services that we provide have an emotional element to them, that if we can show that, then we can say, okay, this is the feeling that we want, or, we want to be excited like that, or we want to be, full from Chipotle, or whatever the things are. So we talked more about kind of on a bigger scale, that customer satisfaction piece tying into that.
I love it. I love how you guys kind of thought about it from a customer journey standpoint, and whether it's any of the three modalities, text, images, pictures, videos, or audio, you have all these opportunities. But when you kind of boil it down to the basics, it seems complex, but it can be simple when you map it out. Sherry Fishman, last but not least, your group, and then we'll cruise into the next topic.
Absolutely. So we had a great mix of people, many of them emerging brands, very successful emerging brands. And we also had someone from the industry and somebody who hasn't even started a brand. But there were a lot of veterans in there. And what we really talked about and focused on is going back to kind of the process of storytelling, going back to what you can do to make this, as Danielle said, it is kind of daunting when you think of all the stories that you have to tell. So Lindsay from Athletic Republic was talking about how you need to be scrappy because so many of the marketers that are on this workshop right now wear many hats. So how in the storytelling tasks that you have, how can you be scrappy? And I have to say that that hack that we have from her is that she, as an organization for Athletic Republic, they have internal webinars where they're actually during these webinars, they are vetting out stories that can be used for storytelling and can be used from the consumer side and from the FD side. So you can talk to the parents, you can talk to your prospects, so you learn and yield and find these great gems of stories, and boom, you have content for all these different uses, and you're saved so much time. And then at the same time, you're getting video, you're getting audio, you have it just makes so much sense to be scrappy and efficient with that. And in the same time, we also talked about, because I know in the interest of time, we also talked about the question, and it is really a question to everybody here, with all those stories, the biggest multiplier, as we know, as was termed, is all of your franchisees and all of the tools that you provide for them. And the big question is, and we could talk forever about this, is who is responsible for spreading that? Is it corporate who is posting for the franchisees, or is it are you using AI? Are you letting your franchisees do it on their own? Because it's not just you provide the tools, but who is sharing it? So I know in an interest of time, I could go forever, but that's what I got.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for that. I didn't miss anyone, correct? I got everybody. Okay. So there was a lot that I liked within that. I like Lindsay's scrappy thing and her little insight there. I've even seen brands leverage field consultants or whatever, FBCs, however you frame it. I've even seen leveraging those meetings to ask a series of 3 to 5 short questions and recording that, whether it's on video or in-person meets. And so that's kind of like, I've seen marketing meets operations teams finding ways to percolate stories. And that's a really cool insight. Let's move on to the next topic. Like Sherry mentioned, that last topic, we could have had a whole half-day workshop on it, but this one is the stages of becoming a franchise brand. And so whether you're an emerging, a startup brand, Sherry, you mentioned you had some in your group, or emerging brand, which I would classify as under 100 units, a regional brand or national brand, there are a lot of different considerations as it relates to the structural marketing mechanisms for your franchise organization. And so I'll kind of a side comment on this. I'll note that one of the perks of being at, whether it's IFA conference or on sessions like this, is you can kind of pick the brains of the other people that understand how they've navigated certain things, what their structure is, and maybe you can kind of take some lessons back. But there are different considerations, I would say, for marketing budget and requirements, et cetera, at different stages of your process, whether it's platforming, which is what I would call like figuring out what are the tools that you're giving to your franchisees, and maybe perhaps there's different decisions along that line, right? And so there's platforming decisions. There's the whole macro of, Sherry just mentioned it in her last comment, is the mix between branding versus lead generation. What does the brand fund cover? Or the national ad fund, or how do you hold franchisees accountable? How do you keep them engaged? But kind of bigger, like zooming out, this is a topic, the stages of becoming or really being a franchise brand. It's kind of like, how are you tackling the X's and O's as a marketing leader? We have to think about recruiting and training. We have to think about brand standards and guidelines. We have to think about campaigns. And there's just a lot to manage, ongoing support, et cetera. And so, you know, at these different stages, if you're a more seasoned brand, larger footprint, maybe give some insight into kind of how you've seen things evolved and at what points you made certain decisions. So I just like to have a conversation around all of this. We're going to break out into our sessions, and I look forward to seeing you guys back for a follow-up feedback chat.
All right, awesome. I'll send everybody in the room again.
This meeting is being recorded.
Welcome back, everyone. I think we have a couple people still in the breakout room, so let's give it 2 minutes.
We'll give it like 5 more seconds. I see some.
Okay.
2 minutes is
Oh,
a
that's right. Yeah.
nice little time frame. All right, welcome back, everyone. I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation in our group. I guess Danielle, I'm going to go ahead and just put you on the spot first, since I just came out of your group. We'll have Danielle come on and share feedback from the group first.
Sure. And this is a topic I'm passionate about because I have seen it go wrong. And so been in the process of trying to correct it. So one of the main things we talked about first was how your marketing fund is structured. And are you collecting marketing dollars, and are you able to also require a local spend? Because the earlier on that you can set those expectations, the better it is, because otherwise, if franchisees have built their business over time and then you tell them now you're required to do these things, it's very hard to implement that and to get the legacy people on board with it. So that was one of the main things. The same with brand standards. If you go, these are the brand standards, they're always the brand standards, we enforce them, they have to be done by this time frame. If you are consistent with enforcing that and set those expectations, it's going to help the branding in the long run of the organization. So especially for emerging, which our group was all emerging, that's a really important piece to focus on. So if you do nothing else, start there and focus there first. We also talked about the tension between branding versus lead generation. And, you know, with buying a franchise brand, you want to be able to build the brand. The brand fund is there to build the brand, but so often the brand fund goes to all the platforms and all the technology and the infrastructure, and there's very little left over for actual branding. And so when owners only care about lead generation, then it only carries them as far as the dollars that they're spending on that lead generation, as opposed to all the branding. Did I miss anything on that, Ryan, that you want to add from our group?
No, I will not add because I don't want to talk too long. I'm sure everyone has a chance to talk. So let's go ahead and go over to Jamie, Mr. Jamie Isaacs, if you would like to share.
Yes, thanks. With several fantastic nuggets that we took away from our group, just really insightful. We were heavily supplier, I will say, in our group, but had perspective from folks who have been in franchising at the franchisor and ownership level of franchising. And Bob Gappa gave so much perspective. If you really want to talk about your brand's readiness for franchising or the evolution of franchising, have a conversation with Bob. He talks about 4 things really to be really obsessive about if you're going to franchise, and those stages of how you know when you're ready to franchise and the stages that you're at. He talked about that so eloquently with us, and talked about, living the core values with guests and between one another, following processes until those processes prove they don't work anymore, managing by numbers and not emotion, and then innovating where you have gaps. He talked about this, and I really highly recommend anyone on this call that's involved in franchising, spend some time with Bob and have him go through that, because he's got a lot to say about that, about taking your brand into franchising and growing in franchising. I thought we just had a really nice perspective from Derek from Northeast Color, who talked about kind of, this was really unique. He said, begin with the end in mind and write your own 5-star review. And what would that experience be like? And that's kind of a really unique way to think about, kind of where you're taking your business, from a franchising standpoint. We talked about kind of readiness in terms of the stages of your business, from entrepreneurial to ops focused to strategic, those 3 different phases that your business can be in. So lots of contribution here, wonderful group, and thought that we learned a lot from each other, and really insightful all around.
Just realized I was muted. Thank you, Jamie. Mitch, what say you for your group?
Sure. I got it looks like we got a couple minutes here. So we had a very good cross section of both suppliers and franchisors. And we talked about really the importance of being very, very clear on the purpose of your marketing fund, and really establishing, goals and establishing requirements. And obviously in the case of franchise or franchisee, holding those franchisees to that, to those requirements. And in a perfect world, when you're putting all that together and you're directing franchisees on implementing, elements that sort of obviously support the marketing elements of what they're doing, is to have any kind of proven results. I think that was an underlying message from the previous category that we had talked about. Also, what was discussed is sort of understanding when you need to bring in support. In other words, do you hire a consultant? Do you bring on a marketing person or a digital marketing person in-house? Knowing when that's, knowing the right time to actually do that, to support your growth or to support your franchisees as they start to come on board. And again, as having your franchisees stay very, very consistent in whatever they're doing, however their engagement is. And really a very big sort of piece of the stages of becoming a franchise brand is right from the beginning, make sure your FDD is airtight, that it's very clear in communicating what a franchisee can expect of the brand and what the franchisor expects of the franchisee.
Love it. 1 minute left. We will go to Sherry Fishman.
So bring it home.
Okay, in a minute. First of all, I just wanted to thank everybody for being on this workshop. And
Sherry, we also do have one more group, by the way, so not closing out, but go.
Okay, all right, sorry about that. All right, so I thank you for not being last, I guess. Wanted to just say from our group, it was an intimate group, and we had 2 brands that were, I would say, in definition, no longer an emerging brand, or just kind of scooping out of the emerging into a brand that is evolving. And so in that, what we wanted to talk about was the journey of how we can still keep all of that scrappiness of being an emerging brand and continue it on. We talked about the importance of looking at where you are right now and adding support and vendors that are going to keep you moving forward. And that in that stage, it's because of the people that I'm working with have been there for a couple of years. It's who they hire to help their franchisees continue to evolve and succeed. And what they were saying too in doing so, it's examples of doing that is setting up their own internal creative staff. So an own agency within the organization to be able to meet the needs of the franchisees and adding the right people, the right team members to have that all-star team in order to continue to move through the stages that they're at, and also having those lofty goals of where they want to go, and never forgetting that. So it's never forgetting your roots of where you are and moving forward, and not moving too fast. And in doing so, what we also talked about is every decision that you're doing within these stages, it is still talking about what is hurting them and what is challenging them, and understanding that what's challenging them is the real estate, the recruiting, and the supply chain, and how that we can't forget about that as we're making decisions to move the needle forward.
That's very good perspective, because those are items that are top of mind for everyone. So we'll go to Scott, quick feedback on your group, and then we'll final words.
Yeah, I'm gonna again be really quick. We had also had an intimate group. You know, from an emerging standpoint, we all decided that web presence and digital presence, which I know goes back to our previous category, is super important when you're getting started. And Randy from Medi Weight Loss was with us, which is a more established brand, and she put out the term, which I told her she needs to trademark, as brand Botox. Making sure that after you've been around for a long, I had to learn how often you can actually go get Botox. I didn't know that, but after a certain amount of time, you want to make sure that you're giving your brand that kind of rejuvenation, that lift, so to speak, and looking at all of your all the things that are working, maybe refine them a little bit, and more importantly, the things that aren't working, and come up with new ideas. So brand Botox was a term I'm taking home from today's conversation.
Excellent. I will give the last word to Sherry, if you have, and Marcella, if you have any parting words.
Well, I can just say that thank you so much for joining us today. I hope that we see each and every one of you. Marcella, please share the date and time of our Marketing Innovation Committee's summit, what's next in digital, and one of your facilitators will be featured. Danielle will be one of the panelists, among others. But why don't you share that? Because I expect everyone, I hope, to be there.
Yeah, sure. So we are on the 26th. We have our summit from, I believe, 3 p.m. But I will share it again in an email too. But if you register, you just go on franchise.org/convention, and you can register right there and see the full agenda as well.
Thanks again.
Awesome. Thank
Thank
you,
you,
everybody.
Thank you, everyone, for joining.
See you in a month.
Bye.